In 1996, Star Trek First Contact amazed audiences with visual effects that were years ahead of their time. At a time when CGI was still in its early days, the filmmakers combined practical effects, animatronics, prosthetic makeup, miniature photography, and carefully integrated digital effects to create one of the most believable science fiction films of the decade. Nearly 30 years later, many of its scenes still look remarkably convincing, because so much of what you see was physically built and performed in front of the camera. So today, let's go behind the scenes and discover how the crew brought the terrifying Borg Queen and the unforgettable climax of Star Trek First Contact to life. If you've ever watched the unforgettable scene where the Borg Queen's head and upper body slowly descend from the ceiling before locking into a mechanical lower body, you probably assumed the entire sequence was created using advanced CGI. Surprisingly, that wasn't the case at all. The scene was achieved through an incredibly clever combination of practical effects, animatronics, prosthetic makeup, wire rigging, motion control photography, and only a small amount of digital compositing. That's exactly why, nearly 3 decades later, the sequence still feels so believable, eerie, and disturbingly realistic. To film the scene, actress Alice Krige, who portrayed the Borg Queen, was suspended from the ceiling using a specially designed hidden wire rig. Attached beneath her shoulders was an intricately detailed mechanical spine prosthetic, creating the illusion that only her head and upper torso were floating in midair, supported by a cybernetic backbone. One of the cleverest tricks involved covering the actress's real lower body with a blue bodysuit. During post-production, Industrial Light and Magic carefully removed her legs using blue screen compositing, leaving only the floating upper body and exposed mechanical spine visible on screen. But that was only half of the illusion. The Borg Queen's lower body wasn't connected to Alice Krige at all. Instead, the production team built a separate full-scale mechanical body, complete with robotic hips, cybernetic legs, and intricate biomechanical details. As Alice Krige was slowly lowered on wires, the crew carefully positioned her directly above this mechanical lower body. However, the seamless attachment you see in the finished film never actually happened on set. There was a small gap between Alice's upper body and the practical lower body, which was later hidden using CGI and digital compositing by ILM. The mechanical locking claws, the perfect alignment of the spine, and the final connection were all digitally enhanced to create the illusion of a flawless attachment. Once this sequence was complete, Alex Krige performed the remaining scenes wearing a full Borg Queen costume, complete with a robotic torso, cybernetic legs, and detailed mechanical components. By combining practical costumes with subtle CGI cleanup, the filmmakers created one of the most convincing and unforgettable transformations in the 1990s science fiction cinema. The film's climax features another unforgettable visual effects sequence. After Data punches through the coolant conduit, a highly corrosive green coolant begins flooding the chamber, instantly dissolving any organic tissue it touches. Since the Borg Queen is part human and part machine, her flesh slowly melts away, exposing the cybernetic skeleton hidden beneath until she is finally destroyed. Watching the finished film, the entire transformation appears almost completely practical. In reality, it was created through an exceptionally sophisticated blend of live-action performance and CGI. The sequence began with Alice Krige delivering the entire performance herself. Every scream, every painful movement, and every desperate reaction was filmed against a blue screen background, allowing the visual effects team maximum flexibility during post-production. According to visual effects supervisor John Knoll, preserving Alice Krige's original performance became one of the team's highest priorities, because her facial expressions and physical acting were the emotional core of the entire sequence. Once filming was complete, the artists at Industrial Light and Magic built an extremely accurate three-dimensional digital model of the Borg Queen. Every detail of the model was carefully matched to Alice Krige's body proportions so that the transition from live-action footage to CGI would remain completely invisible. The digital character was then animated frame by frame, precisely following every movement from the actress's original performance. Rather than replacing her acting, the CGI was designed to preserve it, allowing her real expressions and body language to remain intact throughout the transformation. With the digital model complete, the artists moved on to the sequence's most technical demanding challenge, the melting effect itself. Using computer animation, they gradually eroded the Borg Queen's digital skin one frame at a time, creating the illusion that the corrosive coolant was literally dissolving her body from the outside in. Now let's talk about the Borg themselves. The terrifying cybernetic soldiers that appear throughout the film, whether they're silently marching through the corridors of the Enterprise, emerging from the shadows behind walls, or advancing together as one unstoppable army, every Borg on screen feels like part of a single living machine. Surprisingly, the filmmakers didn't need hundreds of performers to create this massive collective. Instead, They relied on an ingenious combination of practical effects, prosthetic makeup, clever camera placement, and creative editing to transform a relatively small group of actors into what looked like an endless Borg army. The first challenge was completely redesigning the Borg for the big screen. Their appearance in the television series had been effective, but for Star Trek First Contact, the filmmakers wanted something far more disturbing and realistic. Makeup designer Michael Westmore and his team decided the Borg shouldn't simply look like humans, wearing robotic armor. Instead, they wanted audiences to feel as though machines had literally invaded the body, slowly replacing flesh with cold mechanical parts. The goal was to blur the line between human and machine so completely that it became difficult to tell where one ended and the other began. To achieve that effect, every single Borg was given a unique combination of prosthetic pieces and cybernetic implants. Some featured metallic tubes bursting through their skin, while others had fully mechanical eyes, exposed wiring running through their necks, or biomechanical implants embedded deep within their faces. Cracked skin, exposed metal, and damaged flesh were carefully sculpted to create the horrifying illusion that machines were growing from inside the body, rather than being attached to the outside. The makeup artists deliberately avoided repeating the same design twice, ensuring that no two Borg looked exactly alike. This attention to detail also helped tell a much larger story without a single line of dialogue. Looking closely at the Borg, you can almost imagine who they once were before being assimilated. Some appear to have belonged to completely different alien species, while others retained traces of their former humanity beneath the layers of machinery. These subtle differences give the impression that the Borg collective has spent centuries absorbing civilizations from across the galaxy, turning countless individuals into emotionless drones. It's a small detail that most viewers never consciously notice, yet it makes the collective feel far larger and far more believable. If you've seen the climax of Star Trek First Contact, then you probably remember the unforgettable sequence where Captain Picard, Worf, and Lieutenant Hawk leave the Enterprise to battle the Borg in the vacuum of space. With Earth stretching out beneath them, endless stars surrounding the ship, and the crew moving slowly in zero gravity, the entire scene feels like it was created almost entirely with CGI. But in reality, this iconic sequence was brought to life through an impressive combination of practical set construction, miniature photography, wire work, and carefully integrated digital compositing. Rather than building the Enterprise entirely inside a computer, the filmmakers constructed a massive practical section of the ship's outer hull on one of Paramount Studios' largest sound stages. The set included the Enterprise's famous deflector dish, along with sections of the exterior hull where the actors would perform. Since building the entire starship at full scale would have been impossible, the production designers carefully built only the portions that would appear on camera, while the remaining sections of the ship were later extended using visual effects. During filming, the practical set was completely surrounded by enormous blue screens. Once production was complete, Industrial Light and Magic digitally replaced those blue backgrounds with the surrounding stars, the Earth below, and the rest of the Enterprise, seamlessly blending the practical set into the vastness of space. Of course, simply replacing the background wasn't enough to convince audiences that the actors were floating in zero gravity. To create that illusion, Patrick Stewart, Michael Dorn, and the rest of the cast were suspended on specifically designed wire rigs that supported their weight, while allowing them to move slowly across the ship's exterior. Once filming was complete, the wires were carefully removed during post-production, leaving behind the impression that the actors were drifting effortlessly through space. And that's how the filmmakers behind Star Trek First Contact brought one of the franchise's most iconic adventures to life. If you enjoy discovering these behind-the-scenes secrets, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more movie making, and let me know in the comments which film you'd like to see explored next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.